Welcome back to DES Trucks. So I got my 2021 Powerboost right here next to my 2020 F450, and I noticed something interesting with the Powerboost. I noticed that it has 20 amp power in the back seat of the truck, which is amazing. Now we all know that the Powerboost has the outlets here in the bed of the truck, but as we can see here, there they are. But not a whole lot is talked about the outlets in the back seat. Now, what I noticed was interesting is there's actually 20 amp power here in the back seat. When you look back here, it says right there 120 volts at 20 amps. Now, that's pretty amazing, guys, because 20 amps on 120 volts is some heavy duty stuff. And if you're wiring a house or anything like that, then that's going to be your bigger outlets, 20 amps. It's going to be your 12 gauge wire, your 12-2 wire versus a 14 gauge wire. So I'm actually going to test out this 20 amp outlet with our air compressor. This is a pretty decent sized air compressor. Look how heavy the gauge is for the plug. This plug actually runs a 14 gauge wire. Typically a 15 amp is okay to run this, but it can pop a breaker at 15 amps from time to time. But at 20 amps is more than adequate to run this air compressor. But not only am I going to test this air compressor with our 2021 F150, I'm also going to test it with our 2020 F450. Now, obviously, the factory inverter in this truck will not power a big air compressor. It barely can handle a laptop. But in this truck, we did a little upgrade. Let's take a look here in the back seat at what we did. So we have a 3,000 watt inverter installed here in the back seat of the truck. We've got our 4-aught wire, our 40 gauge wire hooked up straight to the alternator. But this system pushes the limits of the high output alternator, the dual alternator setup, which is 397 amp. This actually draws more than the alternators can produce, and should actually drain the batteries. But this is just a questionable system in general, because 3,000 is just it's honestly too much to really put in a truck, because the alternators are going to be pushed to the limits, the batteries are going to be pushed to the limits, all the wiring is going to be pushed to the limits. So when I do this, I'm going to be ready with the fire extinguisher and the water hose and all that stuff to make sure nothing burns up. But we're going to see if this truck, our little contraption, our hookup with our 3,000 watt inverter, can power this big air compressor. And we're going to see if the 2021 Powerboost F150 can power the air compressor as well. So comment below. See you guys at the next scene. We're going to start with the Powerboost. Let's get everything hooked up and tested. All right, guys, here in the back seat of the truck, getting ready to plug in the air compressor, and I'm looking at this plug, and I don't know if I have to press anything in order to get this thing going. There's just a USB, and there's our outlet, and look at that, it's just lit up. I think it's ready to go. I'm gonna plug it in. It does have some warnings on it, like a little electrocution thing there, but let's plug it in and see. If it's that simple, you can power something this big off of just the back seat plug in an F150. Now this is interesting because we know that if you plug this up in the bed of the truck, absolutely it will definitely run this air compressor in the bed of the truck, because back there you get a lot more power. I mean, you get what is it saying that you get back here? It says right here you get 2.4 kilowatts, 120 volt, 20 amps. So I'm guessing maybe you're getting I don't know, maybe you're getting the same thing in the back seat. I'm not sure, but right here you get 240 volts at 30 amps. That's insane. So we know for a fact that if we plug it up back here, it should be no issues. But will it work from the back seat? The back seat plug of the vehicle, from inside of the vehicle, would this power this air compressor? Now, we've taken the time to drain all the air out of it, and it doesn't seem to be any buttons or anything to press to get that inverter to turn on. Is it gonna run this compressor, or is it just gonna turn off? I guess it's the moment of truth. We're at 0 PSI inside of the compressor. Let's go ahead and power it up and see if it does it. Here we go. Right now, the engine of the truck is off. So let's go ahead and do what we do. Wow, guys, no issues. So far, so good. I mean, it's doing it. It's definitely doing what it does. It's turned off. So the engine turned on. The air compressor turned off. I got a blinking light here. We've got a blinking light. It did it for a little while though. What happened? Let's see if we can figure out what happened here. It says items plugged in exceeded the system's max capacity. Try unplugging one or more to reset. See owner's manual. Okay. Close. I'm not gonna hit reset because it's still on. And we're gonna go ahead and go into the settings and see if we can maybe go to features. I'm gonna see if I can pull up onboard power. All right, so now I'm gonna unplug the compressor back here so that it can reset it. And then we're gonna turn on the generator. It says we are in the red. In generator mode, your engine will continue to run to supply power. Close. Are we running? Why is our engine not running? Interesting. So you can rev the engine. Then it will. I want the engine running. So the engine instantly turns off. Okay, whatever. Let's see if this works. All right, plug it in. All right, let's see what happens. All right, here we go. Attempt number 2. So I don't know if it's gonna turn off this time. One of the issues is the engine isn't running just yet for whatever reason. So if the engine would just run, we'd be good. I don't know why. So you can watch the watts going down. So I press the gas pedal, trying to kick the engine on, but yeah, you can see the wattage. We're at 1100 watts. I wonder if this is gonna tell me how much this air compressor uses. I don't know if it tells you that. It's not enough to keep the engine running. Apparently, the engine is off again. So even though that compressor is running, the engine is continuing to turn off. I do have generator mode turned on. Now it's saying 1200 watts, 1100 watts, 1200 watts. It's going back and forth. Very interesting. So maybe as the air pressure builds up, like I said, I drained the air tank down to 0. And maybe when the pressure starts to build inside of the air tank, maybe it starts to demand more power. But at this wattage, the engine's actually off, guys. So this hybrid battery's got enough power to actually power the air compressor without the engine. No factor at all to power all this with no engine. Pretty amazing. I'm gonna have to get some bigger stuff to plug in here, but it's cool that it doesn't run the engine. Like, even with me just messing around getting the air compressor ready and hooked up and pulling it out and parking all these trucks, I've let this truck run and it's just not running the engine that much to even keep the AC running and all that stuff. The truck's cold and the engine's barely burned any fuel. So now with the AC running and the engine finally kicking on, the engine will kick on for about 30 seconds or so. All right, we're at 1300, 1200. So as the air pressure builds, we're getting more wattage. But the engine will kick on for a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds, and then turn back off. It doesn't take much for this engine and this hybrid system to get the batteries charged up using the engine. So it's pretty impressive. This is very interesting because if you're a guy who sits in your truck a lot, you idle a lot, then this thing's gonna save you a lot of fuel just from idling. It takes a ton of idling. away from the engine, which is cool, because if this ever makes it to Super Duty, that's something Super Duty could really use. I mean, onboard power and idling is huge. Now hybrid stuff is cool. It's cool too, to save some fuel in the Super Duty, but I think once you're towing or anything like that, all bets are going to be off for. I mean, it'll add power, don't get me wrong. It'll add, you know, this adds, I think, like, I don't know, 25 horsepower, something, maybe more. I don't know exact specs right now off the top of my head, but yeah, it's doing it. It's doing it, guys. 1300 watts. So what's nice too is I know the watts, and at 1300 watts, I'm less than half of the power required, even on my F450 with a 3000 watt inverter. So I probably won't burn up the truck, you know, because this thing isn't too crazy. I'm gonna have to get something that draws a little bit more power than this. But yeah, there's the engine finally kicking back on. Guys, we were able to dang near fill up the air compressor without even running the engine that much. I wonder how long it's gonna even run for. This is just, and then guys, this is a quarter of the power, less than a quarter of the power. Like, I got a whole nother generator apparently, as there's an A and a B. And apparently B hasn't even, it's not even on, just A. It's just nothing short of amazing. So I gotta figure out what I gotta do to get my house to be able to be powered off of this truck. We're getting close to 1400 watts, but still no factor. Still no factor. So 20 amps at 120 volts, we're still good, right? I think we're good to about 3000 watts, I would think. But guys, this is just blowing me away. 1400. So I like that it shows you that, you know, knowing how much you're drawing is incredibly useful. And it's also cool that it does this while the vehicle's while the vehicle's moving. So if you got an RV, in theory, you can charge the RV while you're going down the road. I don't know how ethical that is, considering I think if you got a big plug going down the side of it, I don't know if you would actually want to have an RV plugged into your truck while you're going down the road. But for the RV guys, this is like gold. To have this kind of capability for a power inverter is like gold. Like, it's quiet. It's pretty quiet, guys. I mean, this is like your whole RV's power, and we're just idling here at 1000 RPM. So now I do believe there are settings in here to make it even more efficient, to where it gets a higher RPM, to where it gets like 1500 RPM, but it's a little noisier. But I gotta play around with it some more to figure out if that's necessary or how to do that. There it goes, engine's off. So 1400 watts without the engine even running, and it just kind of cycles back and forth, and it does this thing. Let me go take a look at this air compressor and see where I'm at as far as air pressure. All right, guys, so I turned it off. We are at about 140 psi. No issues at all getting up there. It runs this huge compressor, so it honestly could run a compressor twice this size, no factor, half its power, half the power of the truck. That's insane, guys. Could you, I mean, this is just insane. So, and not to mention, this is not the big plug in the back. This literally is your back seat. It's in the back seat, guys. It's in the back seat. So no factor, powers the air compressor. I'm gonna drain it down, and I'm gonna test out my work here that I've done on the F450. Is it gonna blow up? Is it gonna be able to at least do this? Time to find out. Let me get it all set up and test out the F450. All right, guys, so I got things set up with the F450 to test my work to see if I can actually power this air compressor with the work that I've done. But before we test it out, let's take a quick look at what we've done to the truck. So 4-aught wire tied into our battery right here. We have a 397 dual amp or dual alternator, so we're pretty close I mean, that power inverter draws 300 amps of power. We have 397 amps of continuous power in our alternators, but we have some losses, of course, throughout the wiring system. So that full 397 is not actually available technically because of loss of wires and things like that. And engine speed, you have to be at a certain engine speed to actually be at full power. It's probably like 2000 RPM. Now that being said, for surge of power, we have 2 factory batteries which provide enough power to surge past the 300 amps required to power the inverter, but the distance of the inverter from the batteries is too far. So it's all kind of sketchy if you want to run the full 3000 watts, but thankfully, because of our 2021 F150, we know that we're only pushing 50% capacity of this. Even this system with this big air compressor is only 50%, which is good. I really think with the size of wiring that I have and the distance and everything that I'm dealing with, honestly, 1500 watt inverter would actually be better, and it's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty adequate. So nonetheless, let's test this out. We've got our truck. We're gonna start our truck. Let's start it up. We'll just let it idle. If the voltage drops, it should high idle anyway. So she's running. And I've got to close the valve here. I've got the air valve open, and I'm down to 0 psi. And we did see, as the air pressure rose, the voltage or the wattage required actually did increase as well. So let me get down in here, close my valve. Alrighty, she's closed. I'm gonna unplug the other things that are plugged in here. Unplug, unplug, unplug. And we're gonna plug in this pretty heavy duty wire. 3-prong. Alright. And we are gonna put this thing to the test. Here we go. Can it do it? Is it gonna blow up? I've got my fire extinguisher right there and my water hose right there, so if she catches fire, we'll be ready. But moment of truth. Here we go. Can it be done? It's doing it. It's alive. Take a look here under the hood, see if anything funky's going on. Does it get hot? So one of the issues with this system is the fact that, you know, the wiring's heavy. That's good. The wiring's close to being heavy enough. It's probably going to be like 99% okay, but all that power has to come through this, which is never designed. I do hear a little bit higher idle. Air compressor is still running, but you can barely hear it around the diesel engine. Let's check our air pressure. Slowly building up pressure. Let's look back here. Cool to the touch. Cool to the touch, not pushing. Fans aren't running on this thing, interestingly. So this is a pretty good unit as well. It's not stressing at all. Just doing its thing. So I'm proud of myself a little bit for getting this to even run this good. What's this? No factor at all, guys. 1500 watts. Once the pressure gets up, it'll be about 1500 watts. So pretty impressive, guys. Pretty impressive. Let's continue to monitor things here. All right, so inside the truck here, and yeah, not high idling or anything. Well, no, it's not high idling at all. I wonder what the voltage is at the battery. Let me see if I can figure that out. All right, guys, so looking at the GPS tracker that I have installed in the F450, and it's easily at 14.2 volts, no problem, no factor. It's not high idling or anything to try to keep up with the voltage, so that's all fine. But yeah, 14.2 volts. Usually it's at like 14.6. Let me kick it in high idle and see if it gets more voltage. I don't know. You know, it's not doing it on its own. So let's go ahead and try that. So high idle pulls it up to about 1200 RPM. Let's check our, well, I gotta give my GPS a second to run. Let me check underneath the hood and see if anything's getting hot or any issues here. Does it even stress the system? Pretty cool. Stays nice and cool, guys. Nothing's really stressed out or hot. I mean, it's a little warm. I mean, just a little bit warm. We're good, man. We're good. Let's go over here and check our pressures. Over 100 PSI. Fans aren't even kicking on this. Nothing's even hot yet here. This is cool. This is cool. Very impressive, guys. This is impressive as well, guys. This is also impressive. So just very cool. So I'm gonna let this go ahead and fill all the way up before I shut it down. See you guys once this is all full of air. And I will say that kicking into high idle did provide some more voltage for me. I'm now at 14.4 instead of 14.2, and I'm normally at like 14.6 with the dual alternators going. But yeah, I'm gonna let this fill all the way up, and then I'll do a final walk around, overall talk about everything that we've kind of discovered with these two beautiful Ford trucks. See you guys once we build up enough air pressure to conclude our test. All right, guys, so the air compressor just turned off at about 160 PSI, and no problem from our homemade factory inverter. So I'm proud of myself. I'm glad it worked. Nothing got hot, no hot spots anywhere. Nothing got hot under the hood, just it worked good. Now, if I tried to push it to the limit, I don't know. It seems like it would be okay, but it's just, maybe I did all right by going with the bigger inverter. The fans did kick on a little bit from time to time throughout the process. They cycled though. It wasn't like they were just running at full speed and it couldn't catch up. It would run for a second and turn off. But I'm impressed with this system as well. Obviously less than half the power of the Powerboost, and a lot of stuff to remember. You got to remember to turn this off. You got to make sure nothing's plugged in when you start it. Doesn't want a load on it when it starts up, and there's a whole thing. You could forget to turn it off and you could kill your batteries and all that. But this is what I had to do in order to have the diesel truck, because the Powerboost technology is not available in the diesels, and factory inverter is a joke. So very impressed, guys. Very impressed. Let me turn this truck off because that diesel ain't cheap. And we'll do a final walk of the whole deal. So engine off. First, let's kick it out of high idle. And engine off. So what's the verdict? Very cool technology with new Powerboost. This thing is so powerful, just based off what we can see on the dashboard, which is nice that it tells you how much power you are using. Man, less than 2,000 watts, no factor, less than a quarter of the power. Just amazing capabilities from an F-150. And I do understand that Ford, they typically launch their new technology with the F-150s first, and I pray that it comes to Super Duty, because this technology would be great even with the diesel. I know the hybrid, you know, maybe if they gave it twice as much torque or something. I feel like it's a lot of weight for the hybrid engine to push this big diesel truck, these big diesel trucks around without the engine running. But that being said, the fact that it can cut the idling out, which kills diesels, if they could cut the idling down on the diesels, I think that's better than the emissions that they have on these. I mean, that would save so much emissions. And maybe, hey, I think a good compromise would be, hey, I'll pay more for a Powerboost technology, but get rid of the DPF and the EGR and all that stuff. Get rid of it and give me the dang Powerboost, and we can cut the idling out of these trucks. How about that? No more engine running for the AC, none of that. You just have Powerboost technology. Amazing. My work turned out okay. I don't want to brag too much. I think I did okay. It could be better, I know. And it was my first time ever, and I know some mistakes were made, but it works. It does work. Nothing got hot. There were no hot spots or anything, and it's gonna do what I needed to do. It's gonna do what, I mean, I could power a job site, probably, you know, a small job site. Now this truck, on the other hand, this could power your whole house, no sweat at all. Like, dude, like 30 amps at 240 volts. I'm thinking, like, I need to reach out to an electrician and figure out what needs to be done to my house to where I can plug this truck in and provide power to the house in the event of a power outage. How cool would that be, guys? How cool would that be? Maybe somewhere along here, this part of the house where the truck can park, maybe in the backyard. Then you can plug in and just power your whole house. That'd be so cool. But nonetheless, I am glad I got this truck. I am gonna continue to test it. I gotta find some bigger stuff to plug into it. But if you were out in the middle of nowhere and you needed to have something that had power, that is your solution. It's not even that expensive. I mean, this as it sits is a $60,000 truck, but you can get this in an XL base model, stripped out, nothing to it, and it would still do all these cool things with 7.2 kilowatt. But this happened to be a mid-level, you know, XLT with some features. You can get a stripped down XLT as well. But we got some features. We got like nav and heated seats and 302A and all that cool stuff. But anyway, guys, that's it for the video. This is DS Trucks. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. My name is Sean. Over and out.